So Trench Crusade seems pretty cool, right? Who knows if I'll ever get to play, but these models are amazing looking. Boom, a bam, beep, abort. Today I've got a lovely selection from the faction New Antioch, a Yeoman and a heavy mechanized infantry. Let's get them based using a bit of cork, some dirty mud texture, and some coffee stirrers that were definitely legally purchased by my wife and definitely not stolen from her place of work. I'm trying to make them look like trench boardwalks, and it came out alright. Looking pretty good. Now I don't really have a paint scheme planned, so we're just gonna kind of dive in and see what I can come up with. I know I want them to be dirty and rusty, but still nice and bright. Plus I've been itching to try out this chipping medium, and this big beefy boy seems like the perfect opportunity. I want to paint these two models in tandem to hopefully apply a similar scheme to both, with slightly different methods. I guess you could call this speed painting? I think all of my painting is speed painting. Huh. Let's start off by priming them black, then giving them a nice layer of dark brown. For the heavy mech, I want to build up the colors using stippling to give them a nice texture. Stippling is kind of like dry brushing, but more just down and stabby. I stipple on some more dark brown, and then a medium rust, and then a light rust. Stippling on big flat panels always looks great. It's a way of applying texture without having to have any skill. Next, I bust out the chipping medium that I got well over a year ago and have never used. Let's try it out. I douse the entire model to protect the rusted layer, and once it's dried, I start stippling on the new layer of paint. I start with the dark blue and mix in some Vallejo jade. Loving how this looks so far. Now that it's all layered up, I grab some water and use it to reactivate the chipping medium. This will allow any paint on top of the chipping medium to start to scrub off. I pick a random part of the model, like his little cankle, and start scrubbing. And look at that, it's like magic. This looks so cool. Oh. I start scrubbing all over the model to remove the paint from anywhere it'd wear off, and then bust out a little toothpick to do some more refined chipping all around the edges. I realize this doesn't really make too much sense because rust tends to settle in recesses as opposed to edges, but in my headcanon this thing was entirely 100% covered in rust, and then they slapped on some of this blue and jade paint over it, and now that's starting to wear off, showing the entirely rusted layer beneath. Now to get the same colors on the Yeoman, I take an airbrush and apply the light blue and then the jade, more from above to give a nice gradient on his big cloak. I start picking out the metallics and then realize I need to protect this layer. I don't want, really wet paint to reactivate the chipping medium, so I give him a nice satin varnish to seal everything in. On the heavy mech, I pick out all of the metallic details, then grab the Yeoman and start layering up all the different materials. Nothing too special, just coloring them in, and then I just lighten up all the colors and add some highlights, nothing fancy. After I get everything blocked in, I realize that the purple shirt, it's a bit too much, so we go over that with gray. I think a more neutral color helps the bright blue and jade cloak and helmet pop a little bit more. It's okay to make mistakes. You just go back and you can cover them with paint. Easy peasy. And I was just going to highlight up his cloak too, but instead I decided to sponge some original jade on there to get it lighter, add some texture, and just make it a little bit more interesting as a speckled sort of pattern. Kind of a good speed painting method if you want to add some texture to cloak and don't want to learn how to highlight properly. For the trench boards, I take some lighter wood colors and just start dry brushing them along the grain. Gives a nice wooden texture and helps differentiate it from the mud that it's in. Next up, I make a dark brown and black oil wash and apply that to the whole models, really gunking and griming them up. And then I forget to actually film a large part of this process, so just imagine it. Close your eyes and pretend you can see it. Wow. I want to add more rust and grime. I start by using some oil paints and then quickly realize that, it's taking too long. Let's use some of this dirty down rust that I haven't used in a long time. After I spent 18,000 years shaking it, to finally get all the fine particulates up, I just start applying it. This stuff is literally rust in a bottle. It's magic. I'm sure you've seen other YouTubers say that because it's true. I love this stuff so much I want to drink it, but I won't because it's expensive. It's probably poisonous. Gives a really cool rust effect, and if you apply it multiple times as it layers up, you get a cool variation in colors. It's all water activated, so you can feather it out or smear it or thin it or do whatever you want. Good stuff. Then on the Yeoman, I want him to be a little bit dirtier, so I just take some of the mud texture paste that I applied to the bases and start smearing it on his cloak. And finally, to finish up the bases, we slap on some Agrax Earth Shade and stick a couple little tiny dark sad bushes down there. And there we go, a Yeoman and heavy mechanized infantry of New Antioch from Trench Crusade. If you haven't seen Trench Crusade before, it's a very interesting miniature agnostic skirmish war game that had a really successful Kickstarter. I fell in love with some of the models and I want to paint up some more. Hopefully we'll try it out at some point this year, actually play a game or two of it, but in the meantime, These are fun to paint. A quick little easy job in between my main projects. Always good to get a palette cleanser and trying out some new methods and techniques and materials. And I like it.